Roman Emperor Nero famously ordered runners to sprint into the mountains to fetch fresh snow, which his staff flavored with honey, wine, and fruit purees.
Hello, and welcome to Curious World History. My name is Colleen.
And my name's Albert.
Albert, it's been a long gap between now and our last episode, right?
Mm-hmm.
But we've had a lot of stuff going on in our lives, so we're giving ourselves some grace with that.
Mm-hmm.
And also, I think you wanted to say something about this episode and some of the words we found.
Yeah, so there are a ton of words that we don't really know how to say. I don't know, Zala,
So there are a bunch of words. We apologize in advance. If we get them wrong, we apologize. Why don't we go ahead and get started?
I scream, you scream, we all scream for ice cream. Rah, rah, rah.
The history of ice cream is very similar to the history of chocolate in that it was happening in different places at different times.
Yeah.
Sometimes it was because one culture learned from another culture, but a lot of times it wasn't.
Mm-hmm.
Do you mind if I start?
Sure.
Okay, I'm going to start in 400 BCE in Persia. So this is almost 2,500 years ago, which is a long time ago. People were drinking something called faluda, which, as I understand it, is still being used today. And it was a frozen treat that had rose water and lime juice and thin noodles in there, which probably gave it a little bit of body.
Yeah.
And they used ice harvested from nearby mountains, which is pretty interesting.
So around 200 BCE, people in China created a frozen mixture of overcooked rice, spices, and milk packed in snow to solidify. By the Tang Dynasty, 618 to 907 CE, records show that emperors enjoyed a dish made from heated buffalo milk, flour, and camphor.
So we're seeing milk show up there, right? In China and other places, which is a little bit more similar to the kind of ice cream that we enjoy today.
Yeah.
But I guess there are other versions, like when I think about like Italian ice or sorbet, I don't know that I think a lot of them don't have milk in them. So it's interesting that there's we still have some of these versions today.
Mm-hmm. Which was then frozen using ice harvested from frozen rivers.
So why would they have to use ice harvested from frozen rivers and from mountains and stuff?
So it could be cold.
Right.
It wouldn't melt.
But why wouldn't they just go to the freezer?
Because it was invented.
Oh, so this, like our discussion about the milkman, we have a situation where refrigeration changed a lot of things, but much, much, much later. So continue, because I was just curious about that.
From 37 to 68 CE, Roman Emperor Nero famously ordered runners to sprint into the mountains to fetch fresh snow, which his staff flavored with honey, wine, and fruit purees.
Mm-hmm.
In the 16th century, Italian scientists discovered that mixing salt, pepper, and later common salt, which ice significantly lowered the freezing point of water. This endothermic reaction allowed liquid ingredients to freeze solid without turning into chunks of ice.
So this is interesting to me because we use salt for a different purpose in water. What do we use salt to do when we're cooking pasta?
Flavor.
We use it for flavor, but I put it in just the water in the beginning because it actually lowers the boiling point too. So the water boils faster. Mm-hmm. So it's interesting to me that it actually changes the freezing point as well. So it's altering the actual chemistry of how water is behaving, which is really neat that salt can alter the behavior of water.
Yeah. But it laid the groundwork for smooth gelato.
Whoa. Now, is gelato something you've ever had?
Yeah.
Do you enjoy gelato? Mm-hmm. Yeah, I do too. And so does Katie. I mean, I think gelato, if somebody listening to this, if you've never had real gelato, do a little digging. It might be worth a drive if it's not far from where you live to just try out Because it tastes a little bit different than the ice cream that you and I are used to, right? Okay. What else did you learn?
Popular legends credit Catherine de' Medici with introducing frozen desserts to France in 1533. When she married King Henry II, while historians debate this, it is certain that by the mid-1600s, French royals were keeping ice cream recipes highly classified. King Charles I, England, allegedly paid a chef a lifetime pension to keep his personal ice cream recipe a royal secret.
Can you believe this? So ice cream is so treasured, and he literally doesn't want anybody else to have it, which is always interesting to me. Because when I enjoy something, I want other people to enjoy it.
Well, then you steal my ice cream sometimes.
That's true. But that doesn't prevent you from having ice cream.
But it prevents me from having some of it because you ate it.
I think what King Charles did instead is it's almost like he went to the grocery store and bought up all the ice cream so that nobody else can have it, which is, come on. Ice cream is so much fun. Everybody should be able to enjoy it. Okay, who else? Who else showed up? Because there are a lot of famous people in history that showed up in this.
The secret of ice cream went public in 1686 when Chef Francesco Procopio opened Café Procope in Paris. He introduced a refined technique that blended milk, cream, butter, and eggs. It became Europe's first major literary cafe, serving gelato and sorbets to figures like Voltaire and Rousseau.
So those are famous writers. So they're enjoying it now in Paris. And what do writers do when they enjoy something?
They write about it.
That's right. I bet you that helped to kind of move the ice cream around the world. So our country just celebrated its 250th birthday, which is pretty exciting. And one of the earliest important figures in our country's independence shows up in this history here of ice cream. And what is his name? And what is he famous for?
George Washington. He was the first president.
That's right. He was our first elected president. Pretty amazing.
He spent $200, which is $7,200 in today's money, on ice cream during the summer of 1790.
Oh my God. And that was at Mount Vernon, which is where his home was. So he spent like an enormous amount of money on ice cream. So that was definitely, I know when I read it, they said that was a show of wealth and status. He was showing how important he was. Now we're going to get local. This gets interesting. In 1806, in the Boston area, there was someone named Frederick Tudor. He was a Bostonian who harvested ice from a pond on his family's farm in a town called Saugus, which is still there today. And they made homemade ice cream for each other. But he eventually turned natural ice into a thriving business. He became known as the Ice King. And Frederick Tudor, what they did, because this was before modern day refrigeration, back then what you had was an ice box. So it was like an insulated piece of furniture that you could put a big hunk of ice in, and you get that ice delivery, and it would keep other things in that box cold. So like your meat and your milk and other things like that would stay cold. So he eventually became known as the Ice King, and he helped to ship that ice to Martinique, which is a tropical island. And the islanders didn't even know what to do with it because they'd never seen ice before. And so he said, well, we talked to a local restaurateur and he said, why don't you use it to make ice cream? And he shows them what to do. And that turned Martinique into a place that has a spot in history when it comes to ice cream.
Okay. So Thomas Jefferson became enamored with French ice cream while serving as a diplomat in Paris. He brought back a detailed handwritten recipe for banana ice cream, the oldest surviving ice cream recipe written by an American. which called for cream, eggs, sugar, and banana beans.
Oh, so that sounds an awful lot like what we have today.
Yeah.
Right? What else?
First Lady Dolly Madison famously served a magnificent multi-tiered creation of strawberry ice cream at President James Madison's second inaugural ball in 1813.
Very cool. So we're seeing ice cream really starting to have more play here in the United States, right? We've got Thomas Jefferson, we've got George Washington, we've got Frederick Tudor, the Ice King.
Our First Lady.
And now we've got the First Lady for President Madison who is doing this. So there's some interesting stuff happening.
Nancy M. Johnson invented and patented the hand-cranked ice cream churn.
So she's an inventor here, Nancy M. Johnson. She's an American. And she invents this really cool thing that allows people to make it in their home. So how did the ice cream churn work?
Her design featured a central paddle, or dasher they called, inside a metal cylinder surrounded by salt and ice. As the handle turned, the paddle scraped the ice crystals off the cylinder walls while whipping air into the mixture. This drastically reduced production time and created the smooth, creamy texture we recognize today. A Baltimore milk dealer named Jacob Fussell found himself with a constant surplus of ice cream. To prevent waste, he built the world's first wholesale ice cream factory by manufacturing it in bulk. Fussell cut the cost of ice cream dramatically, transforming it from an innate luxury to a treat that working-class families could regularly afford.
Cool. And then I saw in 1893 that ladies' cafes serving ice cream sprang up around the Chicago World's Fair. So that starts to get it much more into public life, right? Between what's going on with Fussell and what's going on here that's interesting. And then in 1904, the St. Louis World's Fair helped popularize the ice cream cone, which was waffle style, which I love a good waffle cone with ice cream. I think that the waffle cone adds a little something to it. But that becomes like the beginning of that cone concept as opposed to just having it be in cups.
The widespread invention of commercial freezers and home refrigerators in the 1920s and 1930s allowed grocery stores and families to store ice cream safely without relying on daily ice deliveries.
That's right. So you no longer have the icebox scenario. Now you've got refrigeration that's coming from electricity, which makes it so much easier. There was another thing I learned that's happening in the 1920s that I thought was fascinating. Did you read about what happened with prohibition in ice cream?
No.
So in 1920, the country decides to ban legal use of alcohol. That means that alcohol becomes illegal. And bars and saloons are closed basically overnight.
Yeah.
But what's interesting is that, what bars and saloons were used for, a lot of it was not just alcohol, it was about people gathering together. So what happens is ice cream parlors and soda fountains sort of rush to fill that gap, right? Now all of a sudden people are joining there. And ice cream consumption grows roughly 40% over that decade.
Wow.
And a lot of the major breweries like Anheuser-Busch and Yuengling, they pivoted their operations from making beer into making ice cream in order to be able to survive. So that's kind of interesting.
In the late 19th and early 20th century, blue laws in various American towns banned the sales of carbonated sodas on Sundays. To bypass the law, sweet shops began serving ice cream as syrup instead of soda water, creating the Sunday treat, or later altered to Sunday to avoid religious disrespect.
A blue book law, do you know what that means?
No.
Blue book law, those are the old-fashioned laws that sometimes aren't exactly relevant to today's society, but they are still maintained. And it's usually just to preserve something in the culture, about respecting certain things or whatever. But it's so interesting that ice cream sundaes pop out of the fact that those laws didn't allow carbonated drinks to be sold. So sodas are not available.
Yeah.
What else?
In the 1930s and 1940s, scientists discovered that pumping more air into ice cream during the freezing process created a soft, velvety texture. This led to the rise of major chains like Dairy Queen and Carvel.
Yeah.
But while brands like Ben & Jerry's later popularized dense, low-air ice cream packed with large chunks of candy and baked goods in the 1970s.
And you're right. It's so interesting to me that ice cream changes texture throughout the years, what's popular.
Mhm.
And it went through that whole invention of getting more air into it, which made it more like you could, they call it soft serve, right? So it could squeeze through tubes and you can pull a handle and it comes out in like a coil and you can put it into a cone. And then when I was a kid and into my teens, Ben & Jerry's got much more popular. They were out of Vermont. We've been to their factory, right? And they're making now hard ice cream all over again. And they're putting tons of ingredients in there. So it's gone through different fashion trends over the years. Did you know that in 1945, the U.S. Navy, so this is in World War II, is finding that everybody's missing ice cream. Their soldiers are missing ice cream. And they're fighting in hot, muggy, tropical conditions in the Pacific. So the U.S. Navy decides as a morale booster that they're going to spend about $1 million, which is $17 million today, to convert a concrete army barge into a floating ice cream factory for the Pacific Fleet. So they were capable of producing 10 gallons every 7 minutes, right? So it was such a really interesting thing that they did. What happened to the barge? Who knows? A lot of those ships and planes and everything, they either were retired, in other words, they were scrapped and used for scrap metal, or they were, just put off into a scrap area, or they were reconfigured and used for other things, like civilian activities or other military activities. Did you learn anything else?
I don't think so.
I don't think so either. This is so interesting. But I will tell you one thing that came out of all of this. Do you know what I feel like having right now?
Ice cream.
Ice cream. Maybe we should go find some.
Yeah.
Thank you for joining us today. This has been so much fun, and I really appreciate this, Albert. Thank you.
You're welcome. This is Curious World History.